Welcome, everyone. We want to welcome Suzanne
Van Mealy.
Van Mealy.
Right.
Thank you. And Bill Alms, who will be the new representative from the city, but he's not able to make it today. Thank you for everyone else making it today. Discussion and possible action on the minutes of the March 12th meeting.
Move to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second. Any additions or corrections to the minutes as presented? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Financial report.
You received the financial report, and I did it for March and April. And if there's any specific questions, I can answer those. Otherwise, I'll just review it quickly. Excuse me. 2018 calls, they're 18.27% less than 17. April is slightly down too, so we'll keep watching that trend. Call volume is on page 2 of your report, and that's on page 6 of your packet. In April, we had 29 interfacility transports and then 142 911 calls. Those are all responses, so some of those aren't billable, but we do like to watch that trend. The large portion is about staffing. As you recall, under the new model, one of the desired outcomes was for the director to work less shifts, and that's showing his March and April additional hours. March, the EMS director and operations supervisor, they did work less hours than 17. April, they were higher than 17. And then on page 7 of your packet, it does show year-to-date. It's pretty even with 2017 yet, but as we know, we're down 2 paramedics, and Brandon will go into that in more detail later, but those positions have been filled, so we would expect to start seeing this trend decrease.
Okay.
There were 523 hours not covered in April. What that equals for the year is about $54,000 in salary savings. And so every month that we have shifts not covered, and we're not talking that there's a whole shift with, as you recall, we've got 2 ambulances that are staffed by 2 paramedics and 2 EMTs 24/7. It doesn't mean that one shift we didn't have any coverage. It just means that there was some shortage on that shift, whether it was an EMT or a paramedic. The last time we'd met, there was discussion about, can you equate that to EFTs? And so I attempted to do that on the bottom of page 7 of the packet. We've got in the budget 16.85 FTEs, and then there you can see in April we had 13.78 FTEs, and that makes sense. We're down 2 paramedics, and then we've got some unfilled shifts. On page 8 of your packet is your statement of revenue expenditures. It's your income statement. What it's showing is that we have salary savings, and we talked about that. We've got about $55,000 for year-to-date through April. In capital outlay, we paid for the re-chassis of the truck, and that hasn't come back to the city, but we did do that cash outlay payment, and so that's showing there. Statement of cash flow. Yes, we're positive, but remember we get our the per capita from the cities twice a year, so we got that first payment the end of March beginning, or end of February beginning of March, and we won't get another payment until August, and so that's the fluctuation, plus we have the salary savings, so we would expect to see positive cash for those 2 reasons. Nothing to note on receivables unless there are specific questions. The trend looks good.
Any questions of Brenda?
Any reason to believe the operating losses won't continue throughout the year, or?
The operating losses would continue throughout the year because of how we operate. The operating loss is before the per capita, and so we would not expect that to change. You're correct.
The biggest concern I seem to have is the runs.
The run volume? Mm-hmm. I can't
Didn't
answer
we-
that question, but Brandon
But didn't, well, there's nothing to do about it. It is what it is. And so my question is, didn't we budget for what? An 8% increase? Because remember Ray was so concerned about that?
Correct.
And if we don't get that 8% increase and we're actually running behind, what does that do to our budget is my concern.
It is fine right now because we have salary savings. We've got $55,000 in salary savings that's offsetting that loss of
That's
revenue.
enough?
That's enough right now.
Okay.
So we will watch it. Now, I don't know if because we're short-staffed, if we're turning down 911 calls. I don't know that answer, or if it's just the.
I didn't think so. It's just a decrease. Ish. And that's not Alaskan time, it's just an ish. You're gonna have because and remember we talked about this, that if we in fact ever got to the point that we got fully staffed, we were gonna have a potential problem there if we didn't get the runs, because we wouldn't get the labor savings.
Correct. We haven't seen.
We've been running short of staff for years.
Correct.
Well over a decade. So I hope by our July 12th meeting you'll have some thoughts, especially if you're up to full staff, what your plan is.
Yeah.
Maybe you guys can sit down, even the crew, sit down and talk about what do we need to do to remain responsive and yet responsible financially.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you very much. Ad hoc committee update and discussion.
Okay, we met March 29th, April 10th, and May 15th. We're still working on getting a consultant for a strategic plan. The person that was recommended to us has not responded, and so we're going to be expanding the search. At our last meeting, Greg Carola brought up wage concerns that the staff has, and gave us a list of all of the Twin Cities area paramedic salary scales. And so we need to start talking about that and how we're going to.
That's been a discussion for over a decade.
I know.
And financially, we as a community service have never felt responsible enough to, two things, step up and pay that kind of fee, and secondly, we are on a levy limit freeze.
Yeah, I understand.
You know what I mean?
That.
Which
I understand that.
You know, I don't know what we can do, and so we've always compared to the Wisconsin services.
Right. I understand that. But it's going to be part of.
You may need to tell the crew that too.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because of the financial, and we understand their concerns. We've realized for well over a decade that that's why we lose people. Mm-hmm. It's financial.
Yeah.
It is.
I know.
Okay. Not a guess.
No, I lost a public works employee and a police officer to Hudson for wages because I can't pay more than North Hudson. So, I mean, it's just not, you know, the EMTs and paramedics that, I mean, that were competing. I mean, we lost You know, I mean, we're the training ground up there, just similar to here. They get their training and then they're gonna go.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're looking at we're looking at different models and comparing them so that we understand them. Jim Weber and I visited Lakes Regions EMS to see how a successful nonprofit operates and just get some ideas, but they've got a lot of economies of scale that we don't have. And also, Tammy Baldwin was in town, and I talked to her about the Medicare rates, and she said she would look into it, so hopefully that will go somewhere, but that's going to take a long time, of course. I also talked to, I met Katrina Shanklin, who is a state representative, and I brought up the issues as well, and she was very receptive. So, yeah, but yeah, I don't expect that they're.
Did you talk about unfreezing the levy limits on, it isn't just roads, it's emergency government too. And we've talked to, when Sheila was still representative, we talked to her about that you got to unfreeze some of this stuff that just keeps going up and you can't control it.
Yeah.
Did you or not?
No, we did not talk about that, but
Okay.
that's a good idea to bring up.
Because they could do that as a separate entity of allowing emergency government costs to rise.
Yes.
They do it with libraries.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay. Okay, and that's all that I've got for my report.
Okay. What did you guys, when you evaluated all those other services, what did you come up with?
We haven't come up with anything yet.
Haven't you?
We're still looking at them.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Discussion and action on RFP for billing company.
So we interviewed 3 different billing companies, one of them being our current billing company. And our recommendation is going to be to stay with who we're currently with. They were able to come back with a better rate and negotiate some other items in our favor. And we are looking at a potential cost savings of approximately, is it $10,000, Brenda? So approximately $10,000 cost savings there. So the recommendation would be to stay with them. We just need to pass that forward to council for approval.
Make a motion
I got a question. Do they take care of write-offs as well as billing?
They take care of everything. It's a full service billing company.
I have just a quick question too. So the same company, how are they offering the 10,000 savings and why weren't we getting it before? I'm not sure I understand that.
We hadn't gone out for bid in several years. And when we put it out for bid, they came back with a better rate. And we were able to also negotiate some other fees that were currently being charged that we won't in the future.
Thanks.
What's the name of that company?
It's EMS Medical Billing Associates out of Milwaukee.
I guess I'd like to second that motion then.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? The answer is yes, I have one. You didn't report on, remember you had a concern that you'd have patients that would come in and stop here and say, I'd like to negotiate a deal, and you could never see the data.
Yeah,
That worked out.
we're still going to have them referred back to the billing company for those items, but it's something that we can work with.
Okay. Anything else? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion opposed, motion likewise. Motion carries. Thank you. Update on RFP for facilities.
I just received the final contract between the city and Five Bugles Design. Once that's signed, we can start moving forward with the design phase. There was some contract language that needed to get cleaned up before we could get it signed.
And this is for the west building?
Yep, just the design services only of the west building.
Okay. We don't need to do anything on that, do we? Okay.
That's an info item.
Ambulance update on the remount.
I'll let Josh take that one.
Talked with Everest Emergency Vehicles who do our remounts for road rescue. Chassis got here early last week, and they're just waiting to button up Cottage Grove's truck, and then our truck should go sometime this week to start the remount. So then it should be down.
So it's been over there?
Not yet.
Oh, really?
No, the new chassis is there waiting for us, but they have a couple things they
So
gotta-
we've been using it yet?
Yep. Yeah, it's been our first out truck for, I don't know, last month and a half.
Oh, really?
Trying to pound some more miles on it before we get rid of it. So then we'll be down a truck for right at roughly 60 to 90 days. So
Ooh, 60 to 90 days. And you did report in your ad hoc committee that there was 2 or 3 times that we had all 3 trucks out at the same time?
Yep.
That means we'll be giving up calls during
We,
that 60 to 90 days?
we're also going to get a loaner ambulance from them as a third out truck.
Oh,
So we'll be. They don't have one available right now, so that's why we're kind of waiting on dropping our truck off.
okay,
So, as soon as Cottage Grove gets done, then hopefully they'll get a loaner and
okay.
we'll get our truck over there.
Right.
So
That answers
That way we're
that
not-
question.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. So any anticipation of when that might happen? No?
what might happen?
Start.
It should go over there sometime, hopefully by the end of the week, is what they
Oh,
told me
so
last
it's
week. So
by the end of May, for sure,
oh yeah,
probably.
yep.
Okay. Update on 2018 staffing model.
All right, so we're moving forward. The full-time positions are now filled with the 5th paramedic starting June 4th. We have a couple of our EMTs that we hired in the last round that are wrapping up their orientation, and we have another list of it's either 5 or 6 that we'll be bringing on within the next couple weeks.
So I read in your minutes from the ad hoc committee that you have filled all of the full-time now?
Correct?
And they all up full running?
No, June 4th is when the
June
5th one
4th?
starts. Yep.
Okay.
And then we also have 2 of our current full-time medics that just finished up critical care. They're just doing their clinical phase right now.
Okay. And if .6 model, when do you think you'll be able to fill that?
With the new hires, hopefully end of July, early August. We one of our .6s we lost to summer employment at the National Park Service, so he'll be back in September. But we're also bringing on a group here soon, so hopefully they progress through quickly.
Do we lose our EMTs as fast as we lose full-time paramedics? And the reason I'm asking that question, if you're talking the end of July, early August, that ain't gonna happen. Because you're gonna lose somebody before you fill it.
We'll lose
Yeah,
some
we'll lose-
through normal,
Right,
you know, through the FTO process.
just not making it through.
Okay, oh, they won't make it through even.
Yeah, some don't. Usually, we'll take a group of 5 and probably keep 3.
Make it?
Yeah, just depends.
Is it ability or hours?
I think it's usually ability. They find out it's not exactly what they were
Thought they
thinking
were
it
gonna
was.
be doing?
Yeah.
Okay.
So a quick question, Tim, you had mentioned earlier, I know we had budgeted an 8% increase in runs. So where are we currently at in terms of runs compared to what we budgeted?
We
In
are,
terms of staffing and making sure there's that balance, that we have the right level of staff for the right number of runs.
at about 8% lower on calls than budgeted.
Okay, so we budgeted an 8% increase, but we're actually 8% lower, so there's like a 16%. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, we're about at the same level as 17, is that what I'm
Right,
understanding?
we're 8% under what we budgeted.
Oh, okay, got it, thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Just want to make sure I
Yep.
was clear on that.
yeah. And it's just been a decrease in calls.
well, that's a valid question. If we don't have the 8% increase in runs, can you affect your model in staffing to reduce your cost in staffing by not having as many staff on hand?
We'll have to look at how to do it, but basically 4 staff any given time is the minimum with our plan.
So it's-
Otherwise, we'd have to give something up.
So it's strictly the third ambulance
So,
out is what you're... And yet that's probably your transfers.
for our operational plan, yeah, we have to have. The nice thing about it, though, is recently we've actually had the opportunity to take transfers out of other facilities in our area. 4 times we went up to New Richmond in the last month. So with our, increasing our staffing, we're actually able to reach out a little bit more too.
Is there any way we can increase those transfers? Because I understand that's where the EMS makes more money.
What I was alluding to with staffing, once we're fully staffed, we're able to actually help out the neighboring communities when we can. So we've been able to in the last month. It's been nice.
It's whether they're willing to give them up. Because we struggled when we had to give them up. And so it's one of them things you hate to give up, but...
Right.
Okay. So you'll know more in July then, won't you?
Yep. And I'll be able to give you numbers on who's all active and who's still going through the process.
Is there a medical director's update?
He's back from his sabbatical. We had a meeting a couple weeks ago. We're going to work on some new procedures and policies moving forward.
Okay, good.
Just, I think a suggestion, you may have done this before, Brandon, I'm thinking for the future reports, if we can just make sure that we always share, are the volumes keeping pace with our staffing or vice versa, so we can make sure that we have that appropriate synchronization, if you will. We don't want to be understaffed or overstaffed, obviously, so. I'm thinking that'd be helpful for me. I don't know if anyone agrees.
I agree.
Yeah, the one thing that we're kind of stuck with as far as being overstaffed or understaffed, we're required to staff 2 trucks. Otherwise, we have to give up interfacility. So it's
Totally understand. I'm just thinking in terms of the
Right.
finances,
Yep.
we don't want to be, having idle capacity and that type of thing.
But it's a valid point. So what happens in the discussion, Brandon, and the municipalities have to agree to it and understand it, is that that's going to cause additional cost if the run volume isn't there. You know what I mean? Because we've talked about it for years, that we've been riding on you guys putting all the extra hours in and not having people do that. Okay. Anything else with that? Staffing amount and the chief's report.
This week's National EMS Week. We kicked it off early on Saturday with an open house. It was the first time we've done one of those.
Looked like there was a lot of people that came and went.
Turnout was fairly decent. We had some food that was donated by local businesses, and we had several little stations set up for them to kind of see what we do, how we operate, kind of the cost of some of the equipment.
What was all the school children tours?
They come through every year with.
Do they just
Yeah.
at this time of the year, they just come in
They
through?
visit us. They visit the fire department.
Okay. They
Is that a
know.
fundraiser also?
There was a donation jar there for free will, but it was more of an educational opportunity to just tell people what we do and show them the equipment that we have and kind of meet the
I
staff.
attended one this week down at Durand, and it was, they had a band. I mean, some businesses in the area, they really gave a lot to this, and also they had an auction, a silent auction, pull tabs, and all kinds of, raffling off stuff. And really good meal. Most of it was probably donated. And there was really a lot of participation by the community. Something like that might help us offset our costs here. Might be, having a fundraiser might be a good idea.
We had what, 3 last year?
We did the one
guys.
big guys. Yep.
I thought we had a couple more.
The boat you do.
Yeah, the dive team does the boat cruise, and they'll be doing another one this year.
August 12th,
Yep.
Glenn said.
Yep.
I didn't even look at that. What is that? Must be a Friday night,
I
isn't it?
believe it's a Friday.
You guys don't do golf, that's the fire department.
Nope. Fire disc golf. The one other thing in my chief's
August
report.
12th is a Sunday. That's unusual.
Yeah, usually it's Friday night.
Yeah. Okay.
they're in the early stages of planning that one too, so. The St. Croix Valley Public Safety Alliance made a donation to upgrade some cardiac monitors for us. It's about $5,600 of equipment upgrades that we didn't have budgeted.
So what did that do? I saw that in your minutes from the ad hoc committee.
So
what did the upgrades do?
with the staff doing critical care training, it gives us the ability to give real-time blood pressure monitoring essentially. So it'll be invasive. It's hooked right to the patient's arteries basically.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Anything else? That's it? Agenda items. Minutes, financial report, so you'll do second quarter, July 12th? And ad hoc committee update. Can you make Thursday,
Yes.
July 12th,
Yes.
7:30? Okay. We don't have to discuss the billing I suppose we could report if it got approved by the council, right?
Yeah, we can do that.
So discuss the final results of the RFP for billing company, update on the facilities,
Yeah, we should have some progress to report on that.
update on the ambulance remount again, the staffing model, medical director, almost identical to this one other than the welcome new members.
I'd like to propose for the commission's consideration maybe an educational component. I don't know if anyone's comfortable in doing this, but I think it'd be helpful. The staffing model, it seems so dependent on the runs and the transfers and that kind of thing. Understanding the criteria for who decides to call who and who do they call and under what criteria, and how, I guess from the point knowing that we need a run and a transfer, how is that call made, who's it made from, and who's it made to, understanding that criteria. Because if we aren't getting the runs or the transfers that are needed to support, obviously, the model, I think it'd be helpful to get that level of education. Does anybody really understand that model?
You guys probably do. I don't.
You know, maybe that's something that we could have a discussion with if you want more information. I know Aaron and I are actually working on a flow chart to more define it for hospital staff.
I thought it might be helpful for everyone to understand where are the calls coming from and who's making the determination who gets them. Because without understanding that, without making sure we're following all those criteria, I think we're at risk in terms of the runs or the transfers to support the model financially.
And he brings up a valid point, because you're right, my knowledge is really slim on that area. And when we were having the discussions of going to Lakeview, we talked about had they lost any transfers, and it was when the hospital calls for a transfer, so the decision has to be made, and yet Ken Colby, who used to work for the service, who lives in the town of Hudson, goes up to Amory to make transfers. And I'm going, what? How can you possibly make a transfer from Amory by driving from Hudson to Amory to be able to do the transfer? That's all he's doing. So I'd like to understand how that happens.
That's one of the things that we're fixing with that flow chart. What is a reasonable expectation for time to get it out the door?
Okay.
That's one of the places that we were losing out on. They were having two at a time, and one that could have waited the hour was being sent out immediately after we were leaving with one.
Oh, okay.
So our medical directors actually identify what a reasonable wait time is, what's acceptable,
Okay.
and that's being put on a flow chart.
I would just want some assurance that it's being done fairly, that it's being done appropriately, it's being done consistently, to keep the model.
Yeah,
I agree.
and it's all being drafted by the medical director right now.
Okay.
Maybe it's a discussion, maybe it's an education piece. It's just something I think that if you look at the root cause maybe of some of the finances, if we're not getting the transfers or the runs, is it because of some reason we're not aware of, or is it because it's just everybody does it differently?
Yeah, and that was part of his concern as well, is it wasn't really defined. So that's why he was putting that together, so people could actually go to a document and this is how it's done consistently each time.
I can do something up and send it out to everybody.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
actually,
would you?
Before the
that'd be
next
helpful.
meeting.
we have the final,
When you get that done,
Draft.
send it out.
so,
Have Joanne send it out. And the next meeting time and date was set by the Fire Advisory Board meeting at our last meeting on July 12th, and then we'll meet quarterly is what we'll do. And looked like Thursday was something that they were interested in, so it'll be July 12th at 7:30. And then you and I and Stan and Bill will go across the street sometime between 8:30 and 9 and go to the Fire Advisory Board meeting. And that way, we don't end up with two separate meetings. Bill will leave, and Dwayne Bakke will come in as the representative at large for the Fire Advisory Board meeting. Okay? So that'll be 8:30 to 9, depending on when we're done here. Okay?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like motion. We are adjourned. Lights are out.